Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the YDOA online meeting for May 2021. The next meeting is also going to be online. This will be me giving a talk about Bach's organ music and Bach's organs in Germany on Saturday the 26th of June at our usual time of 7:30. We're very much hoping that the first face-to-face meeting can take place on Saturday the 24th of July when Max is arranging a visit to see some of Denman's organs. We will follow this up hopefully by a similar visit to the organs around Market Wheaton on the 21st of August, but that of course will all be subject to confirmation. So this evening we're honoured to welcome the organiste titulaire of Saint-Eustache in Paris. Saint-Eustache, as many of you will know, is known as the Cathedral of the Halles, the Cathedral of the Market Halls, not only because of its location in Paris, but also because it is indeed a cathedral in its own right, a magnificent building indeed. Thomas mentioned the Forain des Halles, a short way in, which refers to the huge food market there that I believe is just being rebuilt. I'm sure you will agree that it's a wonderful experience to meet such a brilliant young person with such modesty and honesty. Thomas is not only going to speak about his career, but also about the organ of Saint-Eustache and the problems they've had with it in its recent renovation. This includes a somewhat noisy wind supply. I gather those of you who've been out here to Evering to hear my organ will realise that we suffer from the same problem in my coffee house. So Thomas, in that I certainly empathise. Just before we begin, I thought it might be helpful if I ventured to clarify a couple of points that non-French speakers may just find confusing. Forgive me if these are things you know already, but a short way into his interview, Thomas mentions the word cupidon, which of course you will know is a cupid moment, a moment when you fall in love with something. And later on, obviously the word for a theme in French is pronounced thème, but you will realise that, I'm quite sure. Otherwise it's all very clear, and I do wish that when I'd been Thomas' age I could speak French as well as he now speaks English. I should just also finally add that at the end we shall conclude the interview by playing one of Thomas' improvisations, which he did for Radio France last year, and he's going to tell us about this before we hear it. So many thanks to all involved. Thank you to Max and James, and to Thomas himself. Thank you all for watching. And now I think, as if this were a proper live introduction, and please do feel free to applaud at home if you wish. Ladies and gentlemen, please will you welcome the organiste titulaire of Saint-Eustache, Paris, Thomas Ospital.
Good evening, Thomas. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello.
I wonder if we could start by talking a little bit about your early life. Anybody who's seen you live in concert knows that you are clearly born to perform. Were your talents always musical, or were you interested in some of the other performing arts?
Well, I did start the music quite late because I was 10 years old when I discovered the music. I was in my little village in south of France. I come from the Basque country, next to Spain. And it was when I was 10 years old that I see for the first time an organ, actually. And I have been completely attracted by the instrument. And I really wanted to make music at that moment. But before, actually, I started making some acting. I think I started when I was 7 years old. And I always loved the stage and really share things with people. And yes, I think I always loved it, be on stage.
So you started playing the organ at the age of 10. Was that through church or another form of, another entry into it?
Yes, actually it was in church. I was with my father, who was singing in a choir, in a parish choir in my village. And one day I was with him in the rehearsal. I was actually sit next to him in a bass section. And of course, with 10 years old, you are not very useful in the bass section. And I was watching the organ, which was next to the altar, because the choir conductor was going to the organ to play the first note of the tune for the choir to start. And I don't know why. It was the first time I saw this organ turn on, actually. And I was completely attracted by the instrument. And I think the choir conductor saw that I was watching all the time the instrument. And he told me, okay, go to the organ, don't disturb your father, and go to the organ, and you will play the notes for us to start singing. But I said, well, I don't know how to read music. No, I don't know how to play any notes. He said, no problem, no problem. And he took my hand and put it on the keyboard, on the chord I had actually to play for the choir. And it was like that. It was like, I don't know, I think it was, like a Cupidon of the music somewhere in the church, and making me completely in love with the instrument. And it really started like that. And actually, I started to play with 11 years old as a church organist on that church. And I was very young, and I didn't know actually anything about music except doing the little hymns and for the church. But I started the music at that time, and yes, it was a real passion starting.
Then you went on, I know you went to the Conservatoire in Bayonne. Did you have private lessons before you went there?
Yes, when I started music, then when I was 11 years old, really studying music, I saw in the newspaper that it was an organ class in my village. Then I was very surprised because, I really come from a little village with only 900 people living. And it was written in the newspaper that it was an organ class. But it wasn't in the church. It was in a communal room. It's a room that we have for every association of the village. And there it was music lessons. Then I was very excited, and I asked to my parents if I could join the class to study music. And they said, okay. And then I went, but I have to be very honest, I have been very disappointed because I was expecting to study a classical organ, and what I did was a keyboard. Then during 1 year, I did study to make a melody in the right hand and some chord in the left hand, with some batteries and with some rhythmical accompaniment. And that was, I have to say, something very interesting, English people would say. And I wasn't very very fan of that, but I did study some little harmonic thing, and I had some little idea of what could be the harmonic word, but it wasn't what I wanted really to do. I wanted to study classical organ. Then after I started really to study organ when I was 12 years old in a private lesson, and I did organ and piano both in the same time. And when I was 13 years old, I went to Bayonne Conservatoire until my 18 years old.
You say that classical music wasn't really a huge part of your early childhood. Was there a lot of folk music? The Basque region is famous for its folk music. Did you hear a lot of that as a child?
Yes, I would say that was my really first approach to the music. It was all the Basque folk music. The Basque country, it has a huge culture and a huge environment with some specific music and culture. And of course, the music has an importance in that culture. Then by the singing, by the dance, by all the instruments, traditional instruments we have in a tradition. Then the classical music doesn't have so much importance on the village where I come from, for example. Then I really grew up with this traditional music, and of course I do love this music. It's my childhood music.
And once you got to the Conservatoire in Bayonne, you must have been exposed to numerous influences, classical now, I'm thinking. One of them, presumably, is Maurice Ravel. The Conservatoire is named after him. He was Basque. Has he been a big influence on you?
Yes, definitively. I do remember that when I first hear some Maurice Ravel music, I have been like fascinated by his Wonderland music. It was like dreaming. It was like going in another world. It was a magical music, a magical atmosphere. And that music was for me very touching when I was a teenager, and I still being a child, and then I still love this magical music. And of course, Maurice Ravel is a Basque composer, not French composer. Very important to make the difference. And he is born in Basque country, in Cibourg, which is next to Saint-Jean-de-Luz. And I have been organist from 16 to 25 years old. I have been organist in the church where he was baptized. And yes, it was quite a big honor for that. And of course, Maurice Ravel has had a very big importance in my life.
You moved from the Conservatoire in Bayonne and eventually found yourself at the Conservatoire in Paris with numerous teachers. Could you tell us a little bit about your teachers and what you studied with each of them?
I have been very lucky that when I was 18 years old, I went to Paris Conservatory and I stayed there for 7 years. I did there 3 degrees, one in organ interpretation, the other one in improvisation, and the third one in what we call écriture, which is composition, but in a different style of composer. It's a harmony, counterpoint, fugue, like a technical composition part. I had the great chance to have as teacher Olivier Latry, Michel Bouvard for the organ, for the improvisation Philippe Lefebvre and Thierry Esquèche, and for the harmony I had the chance to have Fabien Waxman, Pierre Pincemaille for the counterpoint, and Thierry Esquèche again for the fugue. And I have to say that all these teachers have had a big influence on me. I have been very, I take everything I could take from each one, actually. And they really helped me to grow up as a musician.
When I hear you improvise, I can sort of hear the influence of some of those people. It's clearly your own style. Where do you see the future of improvisation in France?
Well, this is a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer, but, you know, the improvisation, it's something is always renewed. I mean, this last years, actually, the improvisation have really changed its face a little bit, you know, and now we can really use the improvisation in a lot of different style. I mean, for example, we do, of course, classical improvisation for church music, classical improvisation using every classical form or style, but also we improvise for silent movie, for painting, for special occasion. You know, the improvisation is everywhere. You know, I never tried to make any border between my work as an improvisator and interpret. You know, for me, both are very important and both are really helping each other to grow up. My influence when I improvise is not improvisation. It's, of course, repertoire, you know. This is really my biggest influence to improvise. And also, for the interpretation, I always try to find this freedom, this freestyle that I can't find easily with the interpretation. Then, for me, the two different things are really working together.
In addition to taking your inspiration from the repertoire, is it the instrument itself that inspires you as well when you're improvising? So if you visit a new instrument, for example, will your improvisation style change?
Completely. I would say, of course, the instrument changed a lot my way to improvise, but also the place, the acoustic, everything around the organ really helped me to always renew the inspiration in the improvisation. But it's true that the sound has a very important on my improvisation. I always take care to have the best sound. The sound of an organ can really be an inspiration, as a terrible sound can be also very killing every inspiration. Then the organ can be helpful, and sometimes it can be your killer.
Improvising the accompaniment for a silent movie must be quite a different discipline. Do you have a way of approaching that? Is there a standard practice that you've adopted?
Yes, this is true to say that is absolutely different. It's really another world, because you cannot say, well, yes, it's still improvisation, but you have seen the movie several times before. I can give you actually my approach for the work as an accompanist of a silent movie. When I know that I have a silent movie to accompany, I take the movie and I watch it several times. Afterward, I will just take a piece of paper and I will write every scene I remember of the movie, and I will divide them as an act in the opera, and different scene, like big scene, like 3-4 scene in a movie, to have some very clear section in the movie. And after, I will do a little bit like Richard Wagner did with his operas, when he did create some leitmotif for each for each personage in the opera, or any atmosphere, then I will compose some little themes, sometimes very short, just for people also to remember that every motif, every theme has a character, specific character, and then they will help the people which is watching the movie to understand also the movie. And when I have decided all this time, I will use them for a free improvisation, because you have to imagine that improvising for a silent movie, it's quite sporty, because sometimes a silent movie will go for 2 or 3 hours. I have did someday a 3 hours improvisation movie. I'm almost dead at the end. And if I didn't add this method with some theme, I will not have any idea during the whole movie. Actually, to have some little recordings of themes or atmosphere can really help you to keep some inspiration during a 3 hours improvisation.
You often include an improvisation in your recitals. I wonder, where do you put them? Is it always at the end of a concert, or do you put them somewhere else?
This is very different in each concert. Sometimes, yes, I finish by the improvisation, but what I like also, actually, it's to put the improvisation somewhere between 2 pieces, and to try to make a connection between the 2 repertoire pieces and the improvisation. No connection by the style. I'm not trying to imitating the style, or not even to take exactly the same theme, from the piece which have been played, because it's no reason to do it. But sometimes an idea, a motif, a color, something which would remind maybe one of the 2 pieces, or something absolutely different, just to crack between 2 pieces. And the good thing, actually, to put an improvisation between 2 pieces and not at the end, I am completely free to end as I want. Because sometimes when you finish by the improvisation, you feel that you have to finish like loud and powerfully and with like a sort of toccata, which sometimes it's making me so boring, then I do prefer sometimes just finish, with very quiet adagio, going far away and going like walking in the, in the somewhere very quiet, and sometimes it's more interesting than to put this improvisation in the middle of the program.
And the other repertoire in a program, do you tailor that to each concert? If you're in Spain, do you play different repertoire to being in the UK or in France? Do you tailor it to each instrument?
I always try to find a relation between the instrument I play and the repertoire. And I do love actually most of the repertoire of the organ. I like the organ for what it is. It is a plural instrument. You don't have one organ. You cannot say what is an organ. It's a question you cannot answer, actually. The only thing you can say that an organ has pipes, keyboards, and wind. That's all. The rest, you have no idea of what is a traction, what is the sound look like, so sound like. You have no idea. You cannot imagine. I think it's the reason I am an organist, because I love actually every time to find a new relation with an instrument. And of course, then I always try to find an appropriate repertoire for each instrument. But it doesn't mean that if I play in England, I will play English music, or if I play in Germany, I will play German music. No, because, sometimes you have just to recreate some sound, For example, when I go to Germany, they mostly ask me to play French music because I'm a French organist. Then they want to listen to French music. I say, yes, why not? But the instrument, most of them are really not French. And then it's always a challenge. But I'm not trying to really make this instrument sound like a clavicle organ, because it's not it's not any interesting to doing that. But I just try to take the piece and make it sound how the best can sound on this sort of instrument. And sometimes you have to recreate the whole atmosphere of the work. The form of the piece take another advantage. The equilibrium between each manuals take another word. And this is something very interesting. I did remember some good experience when I had actually to play some Franck music in a Sauer organ, which is absolutely not done for that, but it really makes the music sound differently, very orchestral, and yes, very well, actually.
You play recitals all around Europe and indeed all around the world, but surely most of your recitals are actually given at Saint-Eustache itself. How many recitals do you give there per year?
Well, we have every week we have a concert in Saint-Eustache, which is called an audition for 40 minutes every week, and we share that with my colleague. Then I would say we have around 30 recitals to give every year each. And yes, it's a lot of work because it's only repertoire, and you have, of course, to renew your repertoire very often. And but it's a good challenge because, this is something different, because for the first time, you are always playing in the same instrument, which is something quite slightly different of a normal life of an organist, because normally an organist goes somewhere, he spends maybe 2 or 3 days in the place, he tries to catch the best he can catch from the instrument, but he doesn't know the instrument from earth. And with Saint-Eustache, I am very glad because I can really create a personal relation with the instrument. And then I feel also much more free than in another place, because I can also try to making sound different, to trying to find something else just to change sometime. I don't have nothing to prove, I just enjoy the time sharing music and trying to do my best. It's quite a good feeling.
I understand that the organ at Saint-Eustache has actually had quite a bit of work done on it recently. Has your experience of the instrument changed because of that?
Yes, We are actually doing some work in these days. We are changing the 22 bellows of the organ. This organ has actually major problems with leather. He was losing a lot of air during many years, and since we got the job with my colleague, the organ was losing already a lot of wind. Of course, it has been worse and worse and worse until this last year, which have been quite awful, because it was almost impossible to make any recording of the organ, because you could hear a lot of this wind lost. And of course, the pressure was going low, down. And of course, the tuning was very hard to keep on. It was very, can I say that? Yes, it was a French tuning of an organ, which is not nice. I'm sorry. And yeah, but it was something very special. And now they just finished actually to install these new bellows, and they are now doing a general tuning, which is quite important because this organ has more than 8,000 pipes, which is quite a lot. And it really is a great experience for us, because we are really discovering almost a new instrument, because a lot of stops we couldn't hear so clearly, so easily, so finely, and now everything is becoming so much more clear, so much more powerful, so much more elegant also in the sound. And it's really a chance we have, and I'm really enjoying this first day of rediscovering, reflirting with my organ.
You mentioned the general tuning that you're doing at the moment. Does that include voicing and regulation as well, or is that another stage?
We have actually a big restoration project for this instrument, but it will be divided in the time. This first tape was only the renewing of the 22 bellows of the instrument, because now we have to start a major work. It will be done in the church, which will be the restoration of the whole facade, exterior facade of the church, which is in a very, very bad condition. And they have to change, I think it's 30% of the stone. Then it's a very huge work. I think it becomes because when they did Le Forum des Halles, which is a big station and a big market, which is just next to the church, they touch a little bit in the foundation of the church. Then, of course, the church is very fragilized since that time, and it's the reason they have to make a very huge restoration of this facade and change this 30% of the stone. Of course, that will be a big work, and of course, for many reasons that you can understand, we have to wait until this is ended before we start the rest of the restoration. And the rest of the restoration will include a lot of revoicing of the instrument. Of course, with the time, some of the voicing have changed. Some of the pipes are not really sounding as pure as they did in the past. And of course, also the taste is always evaluating with time. Then we have to make some little changing on the voicing. And of course, we also need to regulate some little mechanical thing. You have to imagine that this organ has 5 manuals, is with tracker and with a Barker machine. Then the tracker of the instrument is quite complex, and it has to be all the time regulated. And of course, they have another console with electric traction, and everything together make an instrument with a lot of difficulties. Then we have to take care of all of them and to make them the best they can do.
Well, we're very familiar with that sort of thing here in York. We've just had a £2.2 million restoration of the organ in York Minster, conducted by Harrison and Harrison, and the instrument sounds fantastic. I hope you will get to come and play it in the near future. In addition to your recitals and your playing at Saint-Eustache, you also do a lot of teaching. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Since 2017, I am a teacher in Paris Conservatoire as a practice harmony teacher and also harmony, writing harmony. It's something I really love for two reasons. First, I always wanted to be a teacher, and this is since I am a little child. To be very honest, I was playing at school when I was at home. I really loved that. Yes, it's true. I am honest. It was the case. I really loved the school atmosphere, and then I always wanted to share and to be a teacher, and of course it's a big chance to be a teacher in Paris Conservatoire because it's a beautiful school. The level of the students is very high. Then it's you learn as much that you teach from the students, and this is actually something very lovely. And for other thing, I would say it's something very important to me. When you travel all the time, when you go everywhere and you play so much recital, well, you sometimes find that your life it's a little incomplete, I would say, because sometimes for the personal relation with people is quite fake sometimes with the concert. I have to be honest. It's sometimes a fake. You see people for some hours, for a couple hours, and you will not see them maybe for 10 years or 20 years, and you never create a real. It's not very. Very often that you don't really create a personal relation with people where you go to play. Then actually, when you are teacher in a place, then you really feel yourself as helpful for the students. You really see them every week. You see them in a progression. You see where you started with them and where you go with them. Then it's something which is very important for me. But of course, I do a lot of teaching also in a masterclass or academy, most for the organ actually, or improvisation, which I'm very happy to do because I hope in the future I will be more organ teacher than harmony teacher. I would really love go back to my instrument, of course. Then yes, I'm always very happy to teach.
So you mentioned that in the future you want to do a lot of organ teaching specifically. What else is on the cards for you in the future?
I still always very open to every new project or every new topics. I don't like make any definitive choice. I still always very open for new opportunities to come. Then I cannot really answer to that question.
That's quite understandable. Thank you so much for talking to me. It's been really, really wonderful. I understand that we're going to be afforded the fantastic opportunity of hearing one of your improvisations. Could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Alors, this improvisation you will listen now has been recorded last summer for the French radio for a summer festival. It was during the pandemic moment, of course, and then the Radio France couldn't make his own festival in La Maison de la Radio, and they had the idea to go in every musician house to make them a recording. Then in the same festival, you can hear some pianists recording in their own home, in their own pianos. And of course, for me, it has been in Saint-Eustache, which was very, very glad to welcome them in the church. And in that recording, you will listen how much the billows are making a lot of noise that you can hear. But in the same time, I think you can hear also the very fine and beautiful color which are this instrument with a lot of different options, the sostenuto, the divided pedal and everything, which can make a lot of orchestral option when you are doing an improvisation. I really remember all that imposition in details, but I think it was just a way to travel on my instrument, just making sure the different color of this instrument. I'm not sure it was any specific themes I had before. It's just a way to discover my instrument.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to hearing it. Thank you so much for talking to me, and I hope we do get to see you again in York in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.